Thanks for having me, Emery. Glad to be here.
Randy, for those people that don't know you, let's give a brief history about what you did in the military space program.
Sure. Well, I'm a captain of the United States Marine Corps Special Section, which is the covert military space program arm of the Marine Corps, which was formed in about the 1954 timeframe by President Dwight D. Eisenhower as a response to his lack of cooperation that he was getting from the MJ-12 committee.
He tasks me, and I shall have him. I'll chase him round the moons of Nibia and round the Antares maelstrom and round perdition's flames before I give him up.
From the MJ-12 committee. So, in the late 1960s, they were developing a augmented soldier program to build soldiers genetically from the ground up, which I was in a program in the late 1960s called Project Moonshadow. So I was genetically engineered from the ground up, tinkered with some extraterrestrial hybridized DNA to, be smarter, faster, stronger for soldiering abilities. Was trained as a toddler through adolescence, teenage years, deployed when I was 17 years old for a 20-year tour of duty where I spent...
There he is. Not so wounded as we were led to believe. So much the better.
As a toddler through adolescence, teenage years, deployed when I was 17 years old for a 20-year tour of duty where I spent a little over 17 years in the MDF, which is the Mars Defense Force, which is a contracting agency that works for the Mars Colony Corporation, which is under the umbrella of the ICC, or the International Corporate Conglomerate. I was in the infantry there on the ground, mostly scuffling with indigenous reptoids and indigenous insectoids territorially, mostly really to test military equipment. And then at the end of that period, I was given a promotion, got to go to flight school, and finished out my 20-year tour as a pilot in an air wing aboard the EDF SS Nautilus, which stands for Earth Defense Force Starship Nautilus, which is basically an aircraft carrier in space.
Of course, we are one big happy fleet.
Concerned about planetary security, so mostly their security forces, keep the peace, but aren't going to be able to withstand an invasion or any kind of hostile military action. They're just not trained for it or equipped.
As a soldier, tell us some of the weapons that you employed.
My favorite is the railgun, because it's the most accurate over the longest distance. If, for anyone who's fired a normal firearm, imagine a rifle that doesn't kick and stays straight and shoots, motionless variants, no kick, no shake, right out the barrel, 1, 2, 3, right after another. So they're incredibly accurate. They don't heat up like a chemically propelled projectile does. They're really my favorite. You've got the greatest, longest straight shot over a distance.
That projectile and how the charge works.
Sure. So if the barrel is about this long, you have a series of electromagnets that go along the barrel. So they're all in the off position. And the projectile, which is a metal magnetic projectile, goes here. So the first electromagnetic is turned on to create a magnetic field that holds on to the projectile. And then the next magnet in front of it is turned on at the same time that the magnet behind it is turned off. And that all happens in about a nanosecond from here to here. So very, very quickly, as each subsequent magnet turns on and the one behind it turns off, it grabs the projectile and pulls it down the rail and then fires it out the end. But again, it happens in a nanosecond. So it just pulls it super fast, straight down the barrel without an explosion. And again, so there's less heat, no kick.
What do they look like? Do they have rifles and pistols? Like, what do they look like?
To be honest, they look like a fairly normal rifle. I mean, a little fancier, but...
All right. So I don't have it sighted in yet, so sorry I'm so close. So arm the system. I got dark on us. All right, so hopefully I can hit one of the pumpkins. If not, that AR-500 will catch it. So firing in 3, 2, 1. All right, I think I got one, so I'm gonna disarm it.
The game's afoot, huh?
Excelsior's been hit. Our rebels now are ended, Colonel.
Still, old friend. You managed to kill just about everyone else, but like a poor mark. marks, but you keep missing the target.
I mean, a little fancier, but a main housing with stock with a pistol grip. If it's something you're holding in your hand, with a stock and a barrel on it. Some of them have a pistol grip down here. That's if the rifle is not attached to your suit. One of the more advanced exosuits has it mounted on the right arm, so all you have to do is point.
How do you aim with it then? Is it just like we utilize our rifles today?
So it actually has a laser-guided system that shows up in your HUD. So you can hip shoot very accurately because you've got your HUD is telling you exactly where your reticle from the laser pointer on the weapon are pointing at. So in some cases, with the ones that has a full stock body on it, there's a scope that you can use. There's an ammo box that we refer to as a clip, even though it's not a clip, which usually holds about 100 rounds.
What are the rounds made out of?
It's a metal alloy that's harder than uranium. So instead of like using a sable round to puncture, whatever this is made out of, some really, really tough alloy that punctures through most armor.
No, our current military actually has cannons like this, correct?
Oh yeah, the Navy has been putting railguns on ships for a few years now. They had their first destroyer roll out a few years ago with railguns on them. And I think I just read that they're starting to put energy projected weapons that can shoot planes and missiles out of the sky too. So Navy ships right now are being equipped with railguns and directed energy weapons.
Well, tell us more about these plasma rifles you've mentioned in the past.
So the plasma rifle takes a super, super hot heated ball of plasma, puts it in a contained electromagnetic field, and then again, launches it down a rail that guides it and sends it out the end of the gun, which I'm told that it's several thousand feet per second. The range is sort of dependent on the sustainability of the electromagnetic field. So a few hundred yards out, the electromagnetic...
Join up. Doing your part. There's a long war ahead, and we need you.
Are you ready for Marauder? Join the mobile infantry and see if you've got what it takes to be a citizen.
See you on that bounce, trooper. Service guarantees citizenship. Courage, duty, honor.
Tell us more about these plasma rifles you've mentioned in the past.
So the plasma rifle takes a super, super hot heated ball of plasma, puts it in a contained electromagnetic field, and then again, launches it down a rail that guides it and sends it out the end of the gun, which I'm told that it's several thousand feet per second. The range is sort of dependent on the sustainability of the electromagnetic field. So out a few hundred yards out, the electromagnetic field dissipates, and that causes the plasma ball to dissipate. But anything within that first couple hundred yards is going to get hit with a 5,000 degree hot ball of plasma that will burn and melt through just about anything.
Now, on the missions that you've been on, when would you choose, a plasma rifle over a railgun?
It usually wouldn't be my choice. It would be a matter of whether they felt like the railgun was going to be the most effective close-up weapon if we were going to be in close quarters combat, or if we were going to need the extended range of the railgun, or if it was going to be something that was just going to likely be nothing more than a couple hundred yards. It's decided based on other criteria that we're not deciding in the field. So it's decided by intelligence personnel and command officers way before we're ever put in the field, and they tell us which one we're going to carry.
Now, what defensive systems would you have against these if your opponent had them?
There is a personal shielding that can deflect them. It's essentially an electromagnetic shield that will basically, like North Pole on a magnet, will cause to deflect a magnetically contained ball of hot plasma as it hits the shield and will bounce off. It does the same thing to a metal projectile, actually, too.
And what device is that's on you that allows that to be emanating? I'm assuming it's an electromagnetic toroidal field around you
that
blocks everything.
Yeah, it's a shield generator that's usually in the pack. The The pack is the back portion of the suit, which is sort of where the power system is contained, the circulation system is contained, and any other systems that aren't local somewhere in the suit are all in the pack.
You seem to have a lot of electronics on these suits that you're talking about. Is there any risk for radiation or electromagnetic pulse from these suits that could cause your cells and your DNA to be damaged?
They have a really good radiation shielding on them, so the radiation would have to be really, really high. Yeah, I mean, electromagnetic pulse is a risk at that point, and so it wouldn't be the first time or the last time that someone was wearing an exosuit that had to jump out of it because it was no longer operational. So in the larger suits, we call the Papa Bear suit. It's open and you can jump right out of it. So
during the break, we got into the exosuits. Number one, what do they look like? How do you enter them? And what's the power supply for them? Is that also with the pack?
Right. Yeah, definitely. I'm not 100% sure what the power system is, other than over time I've seen them change as far as the size. So, a couple decades early in my career, the power supply was, about the size of a shoebox. Towards the end of my career, the power supplies were closer to the size of a pack of cigarettes.
And what kind of power supply is that? Where is it getting that energy from?
Usually a 0 point or an electron pump of some kind. So there's something that can continually pull out joules pretty much forever until the system itself is damaged. But they're small, so you can't build a bomb out of them, really.
Through your experience on your missions, has there ever been a time that your weapons failed against an opponent?
It's incredibly rare, incredibly rare. The failure rate of the equipment is less than 1%, and there are very few situations that we would encounter, again, because of our good intel on what we're going into. We don't go into a situation with equipment that we have a sense is not going to work well. So we have a few variations in the type of equipment that we can use to be mission ready for different defensive circumstances. So if we think that electromagnetic pulse is an option or a likely defensive option, we're not going to use certain exosuits. We might use something different.
Were any of those weapons ineffective during a combat moment where, it's not firing?
Very few situations that we would encounter, again, because of our good intel on what we're going into. We don't go into a situation with equipment that we have a sense is not going to work well. So we have a few variations in the type of equipment that we can use to be mission ready for different defensive circumstances. So if we think that electromagnetic pulse is an option or a likely defensive option, we're not going to use certain exosuits. We might use something different.
Were any of those weapons ineffective during a combat moment where, it's not firing?
There were a couple of times when we were engaging with the indigenous reptoids on Mars, and we know, after the fact that they were using psionic abilities. So it would often be that we could not hit them from a distance, or the weapons wouldn't work at a distance, and we'd have to get closer and closer and closer because they wanted close quarters combat. So we would find the inconsistent operational rates, at a distance were up and down. And because they were inconsistent, we didn't think it was mechanical failure or, that 1% of manufacturing defects. We figured it was something else, but it took some time before we learned that it was psionic abilities.
Once you have mentioned to me about the scorpions, these giant creatures, what were you using against them as far as weapons and protection?
You've been in the secret space program. Hey, Jason.
Hello, Jay. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Why are you personally coming forward?
I'm coming forward now because there are thousands of others out there that have been through this, that have gone on the 20 and back program. And I'm not just talking about Americans, we're talking globally. And some of the people that did not come back, their stories need to be told, whether they were soldiers or scientists or just civilians. They provided and gave the ultimate sacrifice for humanity, and their stories need to be told. We need to have full disclosure. The people need to be aware of some of the things that humanity has done. It's time to heal and to grow from that.
I don't know you. But you, I never forget a face. Mr. Jangle.
It's only the facts of my genetically engineered intellect that allows us to survive.
I show up at this facility and meet my new company commander. We got into the first elevator. There were 2 buttons, up, down. That was it. He placed his hand on a scanner on the wall, and then we started our trip down. It was about a 5-minute elevator ride. And towards the bottom, I recall that there was a very peculiar feeling of vertigo, where the world seemed to turn sideways for just an instant, and it was gone.
And were there cameras in this elevator?
I'm sure there were. I never saw them. Yeah. As they later told me that from the moment I stepped foot in the facility that I was being watched, and all of my actions and choices and decisions were being recorded and used for part of my training. So, but we get to the end of the bottom of that first elevator ride. He had his hand on his sidearm as a Beretta, and was very, very intently watching what I was doing. And of course, I didn't know about the...
Oh, he was afraid might go psychotic.
He was worried that if I went psychotic, I would try and attack him. And I later found out that he had to use his sidearm on another trainee earlier that day. So we get to the end of the elevator ride down, and it opens up onto a red-lit platform that's about 12 feet high, 10 feet wide, and 10 feet in front of the elevators is traffic. And there's a capsule transportation train, if you will, shaped like a pill. It has a Lamborghini-style door that's opened. It was white. The capsule that we were getting into was barely shorter than the landing. So we get into the capsule, and I sit down on the right side, and he comes and sits down in front of me, and our knees are only a few inches apart, and the door closes, and I couldn't tell which direction we were moving in. And then I sat quietly, and I got the feeling that we were moving in a direction towards my back. So I was facing rear. And so that trip, it lasted about 30 minutes. We passed through a portal, and we're no longer on Earth. And
the train passed through a portal?
The train passed through a portal. It took us to another location. I was able to recognize that because the background Schumann resonance was different. It wasn't the same as here. And so I was able to pick that up, and that actually came out during hypnosis.
Okay, hang on here. First off, what's a Schumann resonance?
Okay. The Schumann resonance is the background frequency that is present on Earth.
So you felt a shift in that background frequency when you went through the portal?
I felt it, yes, after I went through the portal.
What was it like going through the portal? Was there any physical feelings, mental feelings?
I was so focused on that vertigo, the world going sideways in the elevator, that I was still overwhelmed with, okay, what's going on? The newness, this is all different. I've never seen any of these things before, and I didn't notice a difference at that time. It was a minor difference. It couldn't have been that much going from the background frequency here to wherever it was that we went to. It couldn't have been a shift of that much, and they supplemented it with an artificial background frequency as well, which subtly different, but different nonetheless.
Describe what a portal is.
Portal technology is used for travel, and it can take a shape of as large as they need it to get a vehicle or a person, and it's to instantaneously move from one place to another. It could be within a solar system, or it could be somewhere else in the galaxy. So for all I know, I could have been 1,500 light years away, or it could have been a mined-out asteroid that's within our own solar system. I suspect it was Mars.
What happened then?
Well, the 30-minute capsule ride, we pull up into what turned out to be the next landing or stopping point. I couldn't feel the train stopping, the capsule stopping, so the only indication I had that we had arrived was the door started opening. It scared the shit out of me, because I thought we were still moving, and I expected to see it get ripped off any moment. And the captain that was with me knew it. And so he knew that we were going to be stopping, and he was watching to see what my reaction was. And so he saw me freak out for a moment, because I thought we were about to witness the capsule coming apart. And he smirked. And I knew right then that, okay, this is another one of those new guy tricks. All right, I get it. And so we get out, and we're in this new landing that was about 100 feet long, about 30 feet high. It was all white lit, no longer red lighting. And so there were a bank of 3 elevator doors, 2 standard-sized elevator doors, and then the largest set of elevator doors I've ever seen in my life. These things were big enough to drive a semi-truck into. Enormous. So we will walk up to one of the man-sized elevator doors, and he hits the button, and the doors open. And I look from him into the elevator, and no more than 4 feet in front of me is an alien staring at me.
Really? In the elevator?
In the elevator. About 4 feet tall, large dark eyes, small mouth, small nose.
And how did you react?
I turned and looked at the captain who was on my right, and then pointed at the elevator, and I said, "There's something in the elevator." And he said, "What is it?" And I looked back at the elevator, and it was gone. And I wasn't about to tell him what I'd seen, because at this point I was still clueless on what was going on.
Were you scared?
I was surprised. Thinking back on it, it wasn't a fear so much as, what's he doing here? Not, what in the world is that? So the captain didn't give any indication that there was anything strange. And so following his lead and not about to tell him, my first commanding officer, that I'd just seen an alien in the elevator,